Okay, we begin today the Gemara on Daf Lamed Daled, 8 lines down from the top of the Amud, where it says Rabbi Akiva. Here the Gemara brings a few different shilas that were asked to Rabbi Akiva that will connect. One of the shilas is connected to what we spoke about before. Rabbi Akiva ikla leginzik. Rabbi Akiva was found in the place called Ginzik. So actually over here in our Gemara it says Rabbi Akiva, but as Taisus brings here, this similar story or the same story is brought in the Gemara in Tainus, and there it says Mar Ukva. Because it's not usual for this lashon ikla Rabbi Akiva ikla leginzik. It's not a usual lashon that would be referring to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was from the Tanaim. It would say a different kind of lashon. And besides that, as we'll see here in the Gemara, there were 3 questions that were asked, and he didn't know the answer. Rabbi Akiva shouldn't know the answer. It's impossible. So therefore, some are say that must be good, like it says in the Gemara in Tainus, that it's Mar Ukva. Okay. So, they asked them as follows. First of all, mis'anin l'shois, or a mis'ana l'shois. Can a person accept upon himself to fast for hours of the day, or that's not something you could accept upon yourself to fast for hours of the day? What's the shaila of the Gemara? So according to Rashi's Pshat, the shaila of the Gemara is a person woke up in the morning and he didn't eat in the morning. He was busy, so he didn't eat. And then, sometime in the day, he says to himself, look, I didn't eat yet today. Let me accept it upon myself to fast. And it'll be a fast. So, yeah. So, could that be a neder that he could accept upon himself to fast? And it'll be considered to be a tainus or not? Or you can't accept upon yourself a tainus for choice, for those hours of the day. That's Rashi's Pshat. So, what's the Pshat in this Indian? If a person is accepting upon himself to fast, minaf gemina, if it's the middle of the day and it's just for hours of the day, why shouldn't he be able to accept upon himself to fast? Anything a person accepts upon himself with a neder, he has to fulfill. So one of the pshatim that the Rishonim say to explain Rashi's pshat in the Gemara is that usually a neder is made for an object, to aser a certain object bahano. But over here, this is a neder to fast. It doesn't relate to any specific object. How does it take effect? Only reason such a kind of neder takes effect is because the Gemara says in the Dorim, a neder for a mitzvah takes effect. So the question is, when a person makes a neder in this oifen for the choice of the day, is that a proper fast that it's considered to be a mitzvah to fast and therefore it will take effect? Or because he only decided this in the middle of the day and it's for choice of the day, therefore it does not take effect? That's the basis of the Shaila of the Gemara.
But this is after the fact also.
It's in the middle of the day. That's what Rashi explains here.
After the fact that he fasted already.
Yeah, correct.
So it's after the fact.
No, but now he wants to continue it. He wants to continue it for the rest of the day. He wants to continue the fast till the end of the day. That's what he's accepting upon himself. Now, there's another detail here that Taisus brings up that you probably know. We say this also in Ataris Nedarim on Erev Rosh Hashanah, that the Gemara says in Tainus that in order to have a fast, that it should be a proper fast, you have to accept it from the day before. By Mincha time, by Valakain Tzar, the day before, you accept upon yourself that you're going to fast the next day. Here it's saying that he's fasting, he's accepting it upon himself in the middle of the day. That seems to be too late. So one of the Pshatim Taisva says over here is that you must say that the person already the day before said to himself that I'm going to accept upon myself that tomorrow, if I don't end up eating and then I want to accept upon myself to fast, that it should work. So he already thought of this and he already mentioned this thing the day before. But this is one pshat that Taisus says. But towards the end, there's a big Taisus here. Towards the end, Taisus brings from Rabbeinu Tam that not necessarily do you have to accept it from the day before, and it'll still be considered a fast. It brings actually over here that there was a story that came in front of Rabbeinu Tam that there was this individual that fasted many, many days, and he didn't know about this halacha, that you have to accept the fast from before. So the question is, so that means that all of his fasts were worthless? So Rabbeinu Tam says, no, not necessarily, because he wanted to fast, and it's called Nediv Liboy, Nediv Lev, and it's considered to be a good fast.
What's the opinion you have to be makabel the day before? From
the day, so because the Kabbalah, the neder has to be before the zman that the fast starts. Once the day already began, so then it's too late to be makabel. It has to be before the zman that the fast starts. So that's dafka from the night before. That's the pashtus. I mean, what the Gemara is saying in Tainus. It's not a proper Kabbalah for a mitzvah. It's just once the person didn't eat, so he's already not continuing to eat. In order for it to be designated as a Tainus, it will be like a mitzvah. That's a Yom Rotzen. It's a Eser Rotzen for this person. It has to be dafka from the day before. Yeah. Okay, that was the shaila here. The first shaila was asked to Rabbi Akiva, whether this or Mar Ukva, whether this Tainus shows is a Tainus or not. So he didn't have the answer to this question. The next shaila that was asked, kankanim shaledik kechavim, the barrels of goyim that was used to store wine in it, asurin oy mutarim. Is it forbidden to use or is it permitted to use? They have it biyade. He didn't have the answer to this question either. That says that this question, if you look at it the way as is, this is clearly in the Mishnah before, where it said that the barrels from goyim has the blias from the wine and you can't use it. Third question that was asked, when Moshe Rabbeinu served for the Shivas Yimei Miluim, the 7 days that the Mishkan was put up from Chav Gimel Adar until the Chodesh Nisan, so then Moshe Rabbeinu was the Kohen Gadol. Well, what did he serve with? What kind of garments? He didn't use, why is there a shaila about this? Because he didn't use the big day kahuna of Aaron, because that's, Rashi says, it says in the Pasuk, V'sisa big day kodesh la'Aaron achicha. So it's not, Moshe Rabbeinu can't use those begadim. But at the same time, to say that Moshe Rabbeinu served as a Kohen Gadol for those 7 days wearing his plain clothing, also doesn't make sense to say. So how did he serve for those 7 days? So lo have biyad, he also didn't have the answer to this question. So also he came Shal B'Madrash. He asked Miss Medrash for an answer for all 3 questions. So Amri, they said Hilchas Adalach is Misanin L'Shois, that a person that accepts this fast after the day began, it will be a good fast. Avim Hishlim, he fasts until the end of the day. Misbal Tfilas Tainis, he can daven the Tfilah of Tainis, which is the bracha of Anenu. It's a proper fast. The Hilchas regarding the Shaila of the barrels from Goyim, the halacha is Kankanim Shaledik Yechavim La'achar Yud Beis Chodesh. So these barrels of Goyim that have the absorption of wine in it, so it's you can't use it. But he says after 12 months, mutarim, then it'll be allowed to use. Okay, so this is a new chiddush that we're seeing here that the Gemara didn't mention before. That after 12 months, that wine that was absorbed in the walls of this barrel, it loses its potency, its taste, and you don't have to kasher it. You can use it. Right, until 12 months, the Gemara explained before, you have to kasher it, and the Gemara explained how before, on Daf Lamed Gimel. But after 12 months, then you don't have to kasher at all. This is only by these wine barrels. As the Gemara already mentioned over here, actually in the beginning of Daf Lamed Daled, that when you have something that was absorbed in a pot that was cooked with heat and something hot, it absorbs much more. It's not going to help to wait 12 months. But over here, by the wine barrels, after 12 months, it's mutter, without kashering it. The third question, what garments did Moshe Rabbeinu wear for the 7 days Yimei Miluim when he served? The answer is b'chaluk lavan, with white garments. And Rav Kahana added and said b'chaluk lavan she'ein bo imra, that he used white garments that did not have a hem. Why didn't it have a hem? So Rashi here brings up pshat that he says, and Rashi himself says this pshat in Masechta Tainis, that if there was a hem, then the Yidden would say that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he built the Mishkan and all the Yidden brought their donations, he put some of the money or whatever he got in his hem. So therefore he wore garments without a hem. That's one pshat that, but Rashi says that it's not a correct pshat, because here we're speaking about by the Shivas Yimei Miluim, which is long after the Beis Hamikdash, or the Mishkan that is, was finished being built and everything was done already. So there was no reason to have any suspicion. So that's not the reason. Rashi doesn't give a reason. There is a Taisus over here gives a few reasons. It says one of the reasons is because when you make a garment and you don't finish it with the hem properly, that means that it's a sign that this garment is not intended to be worn permanently. You're just wearing it temporarily. So Moshe Rabbeinu wore the garments without a hem to make the point that he's not the permanent Kohen Gadol. The Eibishter gave the Kohen Gedoyle to Aaron HaKohen. Another pshat is that you're supposed to read Imra with an ayin. She'ein by Imra means that it doesn't have in it wool, because it was made from linen garments. That's another gersa here in the Gemara. Going back to the Mishnah, it said that the Chatzanim and the Zogim, which are the grape seeds and the grape skins, from the wines, from the Goyim that they produced, is also Asar. And the Mishnah, there was a machlokes about this. There was an opinion that said that after, if they become dried up, so then it's not going to be Asar anymore. The Gemara brings a brayso that explains this. Tan Rabbanon, we learned in the brayso, Chatzanim v'Zogim shalei v'kechavim. The grape seeds and skins of from a guy that produced wine from this, lachin, if it's still moist, then asurim. It's aser. It's aser b'hana. Yiveshim, if it's dry, mutarim, then it's totally mutar. It's like it becomes completely dry, where there's no moisture, no wine, nothing left in it. It's like a piece of wood. So it's totally mutar. So the Gemara explains, Hai ninu lachin, v'hai ninu yiveshim. When do we say that it's still moist, and when do we consider it to be completely dry? It's moist the first 12 months. Yiveshim lacha yud beis chodesh. It's dry after 12 months. Itmer, now we learned, some take out the word itmer here. Omer Abba Bar Bachon, Omer Rabbi Yechanan, Keshehein Asurin, when it says here that these grape seeds and the grape skins are Aser, what it meant is Aser Asurin Afula Ba'ana. It's Aser even Ba'ana because this is the wine that the guy produced for his Avoda Zara. Keshehein Mutarin, when it's allowed, it means Mutarin Afula Ba'achila. It becomes totally dried up, it's like a piece of wood. It's so you can use it, and even if you want to consume it, it'll be allowed. Omer Rav Zvid said, Hi, Durdaya, the Chamre, the Armoy, the sediments of the wine from the Armenians, from a guy, Basa Tresa Yarcheshata, after 12 months, Shari. It's completely allowed. Like we just said, regarding the grape seeds and grape skins, the same with the sediments, after 12 months, it has nothing left to it, you can't use it anymore. That's the simple pshat here. Taisus over here says that from these sediments, they would actually produce wine from it. And after they press the grapes and you have all the sediments, what do they do with it? You pour water on it once, you can produce wine. You can pour water a second time, you can produce more wine, until finally it becomes, you take out all the juice of it, that you can't produce wine anymore. So Taisa says, when it says here after 12 months that you can't, that it's going to be mutter, that's tafka when they poured water over it and produced a lot of wine from it, and it drew out already all the juice, all the wine from it, then it's going to be mutter. Temet, that's what it's called, yeah. Yeah, correct. And when you make this wine with the water. Hani Gulfi, these barrels, this is the earthenware barrels. Basa Tresa Yarchi after 12 months, or Yachishata after 12 months, Shari. It's allowed, like the Gemara said before already. Rav Chavive said, Hani Avita Detayi. These flasks that were made from very thick leather. It's called after. We had before leather flask, but this is a different type. It's made from very thick leather, and it absorbs a lot. But basta tresi yachishata after 12 months, shari, it's allowed. The grape seeds from the Armenians. Basta tresi yachishata after 12 months, shari, it's allowed. These earthenware vessels, whether they're red or they're black, after 12 months, shari, it's allowed. So all these Amiroim said the same halacha. After 12 months, the absorption of the wine is gone. Going back to the Mishnah, it said Vahamurius. Murius is fish brine. So the Mishnah said that this will also be, this is what Machlekes actually, the Mishnah, if it's also Bahana, Rab Meir said that it's also Bahana, and the Chachamim said that it's also Ba'achila. So Tana Rabbanon and Abraisa, we learned about this Murius, that Murius Uman, or the Murius that's made by a professional that produces this, mutter. That's going to be allowed. What's the reason for this? So the Gemara will soon explain, but the point here is that this Murius, when it's made by a professional, he takes the fish that's very, very fatty, and it's put into water with salt that draws out that fats, and because it's so fatty, they don't add wine to the ingredients, because the fattiness is already enough, and only if you can add the wine, you could actually even ruin it. So the uman that he wants to produce good quality murias with very fatty, there's no concern that he added any wine to this. Rabbi ben Gamliel Mishom Rab Chanina ben Gamliel. Rabbi ben Gamliel said the name of Rab Chanina ben Gamliel that another halacha that's regarding a professional, that af chilik, this fish that's called chilik. So if it's uman, if it's a professional fish catcher that has these fish, mutter, this will also be allowed. Okay, so what's the story here with this chilik? So Rashi says this chilik is a kind of fish that's called, Rashi here gives it the name, that the chilik is a kind of fish that's called sultanis. That's the name of this fish. Whatever that fish is today, I don't know. But the point about this fish is that when it's small, it doesn't have proper scales and fins, so you can't see if it's kosher or not. But then when it gets bigger, it produces, it develops the skills, the scales and fins. But when it's small, you catch it together with other tomei fish. And if you're not a professional, you can't separate between these fish and other fish. So therefore there's a problem to eat from this chilik, this sultanis fish. But the professional fish catchers that want to separate this sultanis fish, that has a unique taste, and they see the difference, and they don't want tomei fish to be together because it's going to ruin its taste of this chilik fish, they are able to separate. So therefore, from the chilik fish, from these professionals, you're able to eat it. Tani Avimi Bereder Rabavo. So getting back to the Murias, Avimi taught in the name of Rabavo that Murias Uman, this that we just mentioned regarding this Murias that comes from a professional producing this, Mutteru, it's Mutter. And so he's teaching this, he taught from a Braise, and then he explained the Tani law, he taught this Braise, Vuhu Amarle, and he then explained what the Braise means, that Pam Rishon Visheni Mutter. When you take the fish and you soak it in water with salt and you get out the fish brine, when it's done the first time and the second time, then it's allowed. As I mentioned before, because it's very fatty, and then they don't add any wine. Shlishi, however, when it's done the third time, Aser. Then it's not going to be allowed because it's not so fatty, they do add other ingredients and wine could be added to it. As Gemara explains it, my time, what's the reason? The first and second time when there's a lot of fat, it's not necessary to add any wine in it. Or others are going to say that it's not, meaning that it's going to actually ruin it. As Rashi says, that if you add wine the first, second time, it's going to ruin the taste. But it comes the third time, they do add wine to it. And that's when it's going to be a problem, even if it's being produced by a professional. There was this boat that was shipping, it was delivered, this Morius, the Asil and Amila Dake, that came to the port of Ake. So Rab Abba the Menake Neturi Bahada. So Rab Abba placed guards by this boat delivering this Morius to be sure that nobody is going to add any forbidden ingredients to it, that wine shouldn't be added to it. So Amalei Rove or Rab Abba, according to another Gerse here, so Rab Abba says to him, how are you helping? By placing guards there now. Adid Naman Natra. Until now, this boat is traveling and it has the Morius on it. Who was guarding it until this point? Amalei, so he answered, Rab Abba answered, Ad ha'idne, until now, l'may nechesh, or l'may nechesh. What should be concerned about? The only issue with this Morius is that wine could have been added to it. So he says, no, this Morius that's coming from the place where it's coming from, there's no concern that they added any wine. Why? Because kista the Morius beluma. Kista is a certain measure, a certain amount. So a certain amount of this Morius, the price of it is a luma, which is a certain kind of coin from that place that they come from. Kista the chamra, and the same amount of wine, if you would want to add to it, is bedalad lumi. It's 4 times the price. So because wine is so expensive in comparison to the Morius, they wouldn't add wine to it for the added taste because it's too expensive. So therefore, from the place where it came from, there's no reason to be concerned that they added wine. But now here that it came to Akka in Eretz Yisrael, where wine, the price of wine is so much cheaper, here is where we need guards to be sure that they didn't add any wine. But still another concern, Rabbi Yirmi asked Rabbi Zera about this, but Dilma Aidi Ditzur Osu, the Shavi Chamre, but on the way this boat is traveling, maybe it stopped at the port of Tzur. Tzur was apparently this port that all the boats traveling would stop off over there. So on the way coming to Eretz Yisrael, maybe it stopped off by Tzur and Shavi Chamre. There the wine is actually cheap. So maybe wine was added to this Morius. So he said to him, no, not that time of the year. It was a time when the snow was melting and there's a lot of water there and it was very wavy and the boat did not get into the port of Akkay. And therefore, it placed guards now, and that was enough to be sure that wine would not be added to this Morius. Going back to the Mishnah, it said, Gvinas Beis Yankee, the cheese that's produced by Goyim in Beis Yankee, is also going to be a problem. It's going to be Aser. Also was a machlekes in the Mishnah if it's Aser Bahana or Aser Bachila, but it's going to be Aser. So Amar Rav Shimon ben Lakish says, Mipnei Aser Gevina Sun Yanki. What's the reason why they said that this cheese is going to be Aser, and even Aser Bahana? The answer is because how is this cheese produced? So we spoke about this already in the Mishnah. The way the cheese is produced is you take from the rennet of the calves. The rennet is on the walls of the stomach of the animal. There's that leftover milk, that hard milk that's still there. You take out that rennet that has an enzyme, that then you place it then into milk. And then when you place it into the milk, it causes the milk to become hardened into cheese. It curdles the milk and becomes cheese. So they're using the rennet from these animals. From what animals? From animals that were slaughtered for Avoda Zara. That's the problem. As the Gemara explains, most of the calves from that city are slaughtered for Avoda Zara. And therefore, using the rennet from those calves to make the cheese is going to make it aser.
And if they were slaughtered not for Avoda Zara, it would be mutter. There's a goy.
Nevela. Oh, so the Gemara will discuss soon. Yeah, well, okay, well that will come soon. The Gemara. But for here, though, we're trying to explain why it's aser bahana. That's aser bahana. That's only from Avoda Zara. But by nevela, it's actually not going to be aser at all. We'll see soon in the Gemara. I think the Mishnah also discussed this already. Okay, but now the Gemara focuses actually on another detail. Why did Rav Shimon ben Lakish say that the point there is that most of the calves in that place were shechted for Avoda Zara? Afila miyat nami. Even if it was just a minority of the calves that were shechted for Avoda Zara, that would be good enough of a reason to aser these the cheese from this place. Why? Because whose opinion are we trying to explain it? Rab Meir's opinion of the Mishnah. Rab Meir is the one that said that this cheese is aser ba'ana. Because we know the Rab Meir chayish l'miyute. Rab Meir is the one in other places in Shas. He says that we're chayish for a miyot, even for a minority. One of the examples Rashi brings in the Gemara in Yevamos, it says that a katan and a katana can't do chalitza or yibum. Why? Because we're concerned that maybe this katan is a sris and the katana maybe is an islandess that can't give birth. And there the mitzvah of Yibum does not apply. So even though that's a concern of a minority of people that would be a Srisser or an islandess, nevertheless, we're chayshish for miyat. So here as well, even if a miyat of the calves are shechted for Avoda Zara, it should be a problem as well. So the Gemara explains, no. Rab Shimon ben Lakish said, dafke roiv. Why? Because if you're going to say that most of the calves are shechted for Avoda Zara, so then it can miyat. You're actually going to have a miyat. And the reason is because it's not only from the rennet of the calves that they can produce this cheese, to take the rennet for the cheese. There's other animals as well. So if roiv of the calves are used for Avoda Zara, you're going to have at least a miyat that you could say that they're using from them for the cheese. But Ela Yomret miyot. But if you're going to say that even amongst the calves, it's only a miyot of them, a minority of them that's shechted for Avoda Zara, so kiven the eke roiv hagolim the einish choten Avodas Kechavim. So now that means that most of the calves are not slaughtered for Avoda Zara. And the economy sharbemis, the einish choten Avodas Kechavim. And there's also besides the calves, there are other animals that are not slaughtered for Avoda Zara. So then havelei miyuta de miyuta. So in such a case, it's not just one miyut. There's a miyuta de miyuta. Maybe it came from these calves, maybe it didn't. Maybe it came from other animals, maybe it didn't. So when there's two sveikis, when there's two miyutas, in such a case, miyuta de miyuta lo chayish Rav Meir. Rav Meir is not chayshish for such a minority when you have two different sveikis over here. So therefore, Rav Shimon ben Lakish said dafke that by the agolim it's roiv. Roiv of the calves are shechted for Avoda Zara. That's the problem with the cheese that's produced in this place. Now, Amalei Rav Shimon ben Yakim, Rav Shimon ben Lakish. So Rav Shimon ben Yakim asks Reish Lakish about this. Kinishchote la'avodas kechavim, even when it's slaughtered for Avoda Zara, ma'yava. What is the problem? You are the one that said that in such a kind of case, it's still allowed. Why would it still be allowed if it's shechted for Avoda Zara? So the Gemara explains as follows. The Itmar, we learned the following machlekes. Hashaychit is a person that shechts an animal. And what was his intention? This is a person that's shechting an animal for Avoda Zara, but what was he thinking? Not that the shechita itself is for the sake of Avoda Zara. Lizraik domal Avodas Kechavim. He's shechting, thinking that then the blood that he's going to get from this animal will be used for Avoda Zara, or lahakter chelba Avodas Kechavim, or that the fats will be sacrificed for Avoda Zara. So what's the halacha? Is this going to aser now the shechita itself, even if later on he doesn't end up spraying the blood or burning the fats for the Avoda Zara? Is that a problem with the very shechita itself, that when he shechted, he had a machshava now that he's going to do something else with the animal afterwards for Avoda Zara? So Rabbi Yochanan Omar Asura. Rabbi Yochanan says, yes, the shechita itself is going to be aser because of this thought that he had. Why? What's the basis of this? He didn't even think that he's shechting for the Avoda Zara. The shechting now is sort of only a preparation that afterwards he's going to use it for Avoda Zara. But Rabbi Yochanan says it's also because kasava mechashve ma'aveda la'aveda. We find this also beneged to a carbon that a person brings in the Beis Hamikdash, the machshava of pigul. The halacha by the machshava of pigul is that if a person had an intention when he shechted the carbon to eat it chutz lizmanei, that's pigul, that he's going to eat it not out of its a lot of time. So if when he shechts, he has in mind that he's going to later do the zrika out of its time or something else afterwards out of its time, even though he's not having the machshava regarding the shechita itself by a carbon, it's going to be aser, right? So just like by a carbon it's aser, we learn from pnim to chutz regarding Avoda Zara as well, that when a person has a machshava that he's shechting the Shem Avoda Zara, but it's actually not that the shechita itself is Shem Avoda Zara. By the shechita that he's going to spray the blood or burn the fats L'Shem Avoda Zara, that's going to answer the behema as well. That's Rabbi Yechanan's opinion. Rav Shimon ben Lakish Amar Muteres. Rav Shimon ben Lakish says that it's mutter. We don't learn out from the Aveda in the Beis Hamikdash regarding the halacha of pigul. Over here, only what is shechted. If the shechita itself was Hashem Avoda Zara, is it going to be aser? Okay, so now the Gemara's assumption here is, or this is Rav Shimon bar El Yakim, when he's asking this question to Rav Shimon ben Lakish, his assumption is that we're talking about these calves that were not shechted for Avoda Zara. They were shechted stam, but then that the blood or the fats is going to be used for Avoda Zara. So if so, why is there a problem with using the rennet of this calves to make the cheese if the shechita itself was not L'Shem Avoda Zara? So Amalei Rav Lakish answered him, Teraminach shaitech. Your mazel should be raised up. You're asking a question like this, it's not a good question. You should have a better mazel to ask better questions. Because over here the answer is simple. Here we're talking about the goyim in this place that the shechita itself was L'Shem Avoda Zara. At the conclusion of the shechita, they wanted to be L'Shem Avoda Zara. The Gemara uses the term Gemara Zvicha because, as Rashi here brings, Rish Lakish holds that the shechita is at the Gemara, at the conclusion of the shechita. That's what's called the shechita. That's the so therefore over here, that's the problem with this rennet that's used for the cheese from these animals. Okay, now the Gemara continues discussion on this inyan, going back to what it said in the Mishnah. The Mishnah, there was a big arichas, a discussion between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Yeshua about this. So Amar Rav Yudah Shal Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel asked Rabbi Yeshua about this, why the cheese of goyim is aser, and actually in the Mishnah the discussion was according to the Rabbanan's opinion. The Rabbanan say that this cheese is aser ba'achila, but not aser b'hana. And he asked him, what's the problem with eating this cheese that's produced by the goyim? So in the Mishnah it said that in the beginning he tried to explain to him that the reason why it's aser is because of what you mentioned before, because they used the rennet from nevela meat, from the that wasn't shechted properly. And then Rabbi Shmuel proved to him that rennet that's used from nevela is not an issue. And then he says to him, but no, the problem is that it's used from the calves of Avoda Zara. The Gemara just explained. It's used from the calves of Avoda Zara, and that's why the rennet is aser. And then Rabbi Shmuel didn't accept that as well. Rabbi Shmuel said, well, if it's used from Avoda Zara, it should be aser b'hana. According to the Rabbanan, it's only aser b'achila. That was the discussion in the Mishnah. So here let's see what the Gemara says. First, the Gemara starts off with another point, and it comes back to the Mishnah. Amar Rav Achdubai Amar Rav. Rav Achdubai said in the name of Rav, HaMekadesh beperesh sheira niskal. A person that's Mekadesh, a woman, and what is he using? He's using the peresh, the waste from an ox that Gordon killed someone, and therefore this ox has to be stoned to death, and therefore this ox is asa bahana. But he took from the peresh, which has value, it could be used as fertilizer, and he was Mekadesh Isha with this. Okay, interesting idea. Mikudeshes. She'll be Mikudeshes. So what does that mean? Even though he's taking from something which is asa bahana, because that peresh is not part of the body of the ox. It's like it's stored inside its body, but it's not anymore part of its body anymore. It's separate. And therefore it's not asa bahana, she'll be Mikudeshes. However, peresh egle avedis kechavim, if he's using the same peresh, but it's coming from a calf that is being used for an Avoda Zara, then ain't mukadeshes. Then she will not be mukadeshes. So the Gemara explains what's the difference. Ibay same misvare. This could be explained either logically, ibay same kra, or it could be explained from a pasuk. Ibay same misvare. I can explain the difference logically. Gabi egle avedis kechavim, in the case of the calves for Avoda Zara, nichele benafche. The person is interested in having a bigger calf for his Avoda Zara. So therefore, everything that's inside the body of the calf that makes it larger, it's part of what he wants to use for the Avoda Zara. So even if this peresh is not defined as something which is actually part of the very body, but it does make it look bigger, and therefore it's still part of the Avoda Zara. So it's going to be awesome. But when it comes to this shayr that's awesome because it has to be stoned to death, he doesn't have that interest that this shayr should be larger. And therefore, the peresh that's inside the body of the shayr is not part of the body of the shayr. It's like a separate thing being stored inside, and it's still mutter to be used. He can be mekadesh yishu with this. That's the svara. Ibay say mikra, or I can say that we see in the pasuk a difference, because ksiv hacha, by the pasuk of Avoda Zara it says la yidbag biyadcha me'uma, that your hands should not touch anything from what comes from Avoda Zara. This is the source of that's something that the krevis of Avoda Zara is asa bahana. So it says me'uma. which includes even the perish inside the animal. Oksiv Hasam, by the shor that has to be stoned, it says, Sakal yisakal hashor, v'lo yachal es besarei. Stone the shor and do not eat its flesh, its meat. So besarei yaser, so that means that the meat of this animal is going to be forbidden, but the waste that's inside the animal will be mutter. That's the difference between these two halachas, between the shor of shor aniskal, the perish that is from the shor aniskal, and Avoda Zara. Okay, so now the Gemara comes back to our Mishnah and says, Omar Rave, Tarvayu Tanini. Both of these points we see from our Mishnah. So why? Because Mitika Amalei, what did Rabbi Shua explain Rabbi Shmuel? Why is the cheese of Goyim asa to eat? So his first svara he said was because the Goyim used the rennet from nevela animal to produce the cheese. So they told him, they use from the rennet of the nevela to make the cheese. And what did Rabbi Shmuel answer to this? That no, that's not a reason to asa the cheese. Because I'll prove to you from the rennet that's from a carbon oila, which is chamura mikevas nevela. It's more stringent than the cave of a nevela, as I brought in the Mishnah, because over here there's an isra of meila. It's a bahana, it's a meila. And nevertheless, the kainin could take and use that rennet to drink from it, or to eat from it, or to use it to produce cheese. So what do we see from this part of the Mishnah? The klal, the surei ano shara pershayu. So therefore, from here I see that this rennet that's inside the animal, whether it's a carbon oila or in a case of an avela, it's asa bahana, but the rennet is going to be mutter to use. So the same thing could also be applied regarding the peresh, the waste that's inside of the animal. It's separate. It's not part of the body of the animal. It's waste that's inside the animal. That's going to be mutter. So that's what you see in the Mishnah regarding the peresh that's going to be mutter. Okay, now regarding the second point, let's finish off the Indian over here. And then what was the second svara that Rabbi Shua tried to explain Rabbi Shmuel why the cheese by Goyim is also to eat? So he told him, because they used the rennet from the calves of Avoda Zara. And what did Rabbi Shmuel answer to this? If that's the case, lama lo yasru bahana. So why, according to the Chachamim, is the cheese of Goyim not asa bahana? So what do we see from this? Miklal avodas kechavim asa pershayu. From here I see that by Avoda Zara, the rennet is going to be asa bahana, and so too the waste in the animal of the Avoda Zara is going to be also asa bahana. Right, so as we see here, the svara about this rennet of the Avoda Zara, or the waste of the animal of Avoda Zara, it's not part of the body of the animal. It's taka not part of the body, but because it enhances the Avoda Zara, it makes the animal larger, so therefore it's going to be aser as well. So therefore, we see both points that Gemara brought before in the name of Rav. We see both points here that we can learn it from our Mishnah. Okay, but now the Gemara explains now the conclusion of this discussion between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shua and the Mishnah. How did the Mishnah conclude that Rabbi Shua did not have a good explanation to explain why it's only asa ba'achila and not asa ba'ana? If they're using the rennet of Avoda Zara, it should be asa ba'ana as well. He didn't have a good explanation for him. But so the Gemara says, why not? Rabbi Shua should explain Rabbi Shmuel, mishum de leser leiser be'einei. That the reason why we don't aser it ba'ana, we only aser it ba'achila, is because that rennet that's being used to produce the cheese is not something that you could see here inside the cheese anymore. It becomes completely bottled inside. And he brings him, and the Gemara says he should have brought in the following proof: the hamurius l'Rabbanan, the murius, which is that we spoke about before, this fish brine. That according to the Rabbanan, the lo yasru ba'ana, the Chachamim said that it's not asa ba'ana, it's only asa ba'achila. Why? My time. Why would they make and said that it's only asa ba'achila? Lav isn't the reason, because whatever isra there is, and again, as we learned before, the isra is that they would mix in some wine into this murius, but that wine that was mixed in is completely bottled and you don't see it anymore. So therefore, they only asked it ba'achila. They weren't so machmir, they did not ask it ba'ana. So why can't we explain the same thing regarding the cheese? That it's only asa ba'achila because the rennet used for it is completely bottled. The Gemara answer is Omri. They explained Rabbi Shua could not give this answer because hacha over here, kivin the oikmei kamoikim chashuv lei keman the isel isur beinei, by the rennet, because this is what creates the whole cheese. This is what curdles the milk to harden it, to create the whole cheese. It's as if that rennet that is aser, that makes the cheese, is there. You see the effects of it, and therefore it is going to be aser. This is what's known in halacha as a dover hamaimid. When something is maimed, this is something that's choshev, that created the whole cheese. So what do you mean you don't see it? You see that the whole hardness of the curdling of the milk is from this rennet, and therefore it's going to be asa. It should be asa even ba'ana. And therefore, Rabbi Yeshua did not give him any answer.